Hello everybody, it's vanburman here, welcome back, and today we're going to be taking a look at Deadeus once again, this time in review format, and I have written a review for it up on the vanburman website. I do apologise for any grammar mistakes in there, I'm sure there's a couple, but I will link to it down in the video description if you want to go take a look at it. Also down there will be the link to Spacebot Interactive as well, where you can pre-order the physical copy of the game and hopefully at some point also get the ROM from there as well. So Deadeus is developed by Izma, or IZMA, I'm not even sure how you pronounce it. There you go, mysterious, just like the game. So yeah, we'll just start by talking to you about a couple of things that I enjoyed on the game and where I think they could improve. So I quite like the fact that it's a new spin on what is a very old console, and the fact that it's fairly ambitious for, you know, it being a sort of a horror title, or a psychological horror, I guess, almost you would put it at, you know, not in terms of like a jump scare, but more sort of getting into the world and working out how it works and uncovering the cynicism of the story, I suppose. It does what it can with the hardware that it has available to it, and in many ways it's a similar sort of concept to some of the stuff that I've worked with before in RPG Maker. So, and I have also of course looked at many games of a similar ilk, but this was a particularly enjoyable experience, as you probably gathered by my initial video. So yeah, it's one of them, and one of the key bits that picked up on is the music and the sounds within the game. So the music is very good for the most part. Actual fact, all the stuff that's in it is really good. The title screen music is particularly enjoyable, and a lot of the tracks have been actually produced really well, considering that they're, you know, effectively on a Game Boy. The sound effects is where yes, they are lacking a little bit, to be fair, unfortunately. There's not as many sound effects as I would like for certain actions and points in the story, you know, when interactions are made and when you go through doors and what have you. You know, initially I sort of thought maybe that was a restriction of the game engine, but it's actually quite sophisticated in terms of what they can do, just judging by the other aspects that have gone on within the game. And I think that's definitely something where there could have been some improvements, especially, you know, in this sort of era of games where music and sound effects were, you know, very much the voice of the story, effectively, when everything is text and visual. You know, in the long time, way before voice acting, you got your atmosphere from the music within the game and the sound effects that accompanied them. And I think, you know, that also moves over to the music, and as I've said, it is really good. However, I just don't think that there was enough of it produced, once again. Don't know if there's some limitation that I'm not aware of in terms of, you know, file formats and that sort of thing, and sizing on a cartridge. But, you know, there were definitely several opportunities where, you know, already existing tracks would and could have been put to better use. And it's funny that it's almost like there is a track for one particular, you know, very sort of unimportant building, and then a building where a lot of stuff goes on, there's just no music. So it's a bit of a shame, and I think definitely a missed opportunity in this one, and something which maybe on a new revision perhaps, because I think it's a very, very simple fix, you know, could be improved upon even further. But I am really nitpicking, to be fair. It's not an expectation, it's more something I just observed while going through. And then obviously we'll tie that back in with the story. Unfortunately, obviously a little bit of story elements that could have been added there missing, but the story is actually really fulfilling in terms of the different endings that you can find. I guess you could even make a game of finding all the different endings. I definitely found several endpoints on my particular playthrough, or a particular couple of playthroughs, including the one that I demonstrated, of course, in my initial video, where you just sleep through all the days and that's it, it's over. And there's a lot of symbolism in there that you don't understand where it comes from. And even in the case of the review that I put together, I put some photos up or screenshots up of the game. And there's one that's at the very top, and it only took me actually publishing the review to realise what it's from and what it means. And with that sort of stuff, I really enjoy the fact that there is, a lot of overtly hidden in plain sight meaning to a lot of the imagery. So that was very satisfying, actually, for me. And it's something that, you can try and explore with yourself. I happened to fall on my first real playthrough anyway, I happened to fall on an ending rather than almost deciding it. Some of them you can, decide to proactively take an action. And yeah, it was interesting, to be fair. It was a bit of a curveball that I wasn't expecting to see in terms of the story, and that adds an extra bit of depth and flavour to it, which I quite enjoyed. And I think just the fact that you could see, in one sense you could see it coming, but in another you had to wait almost for it to happen before it became apparent. So yeah, take from that what you will, but I definitely think that there are some really good story elements in here, and some really good storytelling elements in terms of, the use of certain items, for example. And that then leads into another small gripe I have in terms of gameplay. So the problem is there's not really too much gameplay to be expected. You are a sprite on a screen, you interact with the world by pressing your action button, and then you choose to talk to people, not talk to people. They have, a couple or one canned response that you get back. And there's nothing in terms of any sort of skill or particular nuance into the game. There is one small section which I won't mention, but there was some promising signs of a bit of gameplay or thinking outside the box, and I would have liked to have seen a lot more of that in the game, because my first thought was that that maybe that sort of thing wasn't possible to go in due to engine limitations, etc. But because they're able to pull off a relatively simple sort of gameplay mechanic, it would have been nice if there'd have been a little bit more of that, just to keep things fresh and keep you on your toes, and maybe have a bit more of a thought about how you would progress those key parts in the story. So, but we really are talking, minor issues. You obviously are probably going to be aware that you're playing this game for the story, to see how it unfolds and how you can interact with it, rather than, necessarily going in with the expectation of there being an amazing amount of gameplay. So, yeah, it's just bizarre to me that there's a game for a console that released before I was even born. I did have a Game Boy, an original one, but I had it after my Game Boy Color, so that's a bit of a weird way round to do it, and then played games retrospectively. But nevertheless, I've played a good amount of games for both, and it's just nice to see that there is still that enthusiasm and love for these older consoles, and people still want to create games for them. Obviously nowadays it's a much easier endeavour because the tools and hardware is there to allow you to do so, and the actual form of creating a game and creating a story is a lot more than that. Anyone can put a few sprites together and a few maps and link them together and put some text for NPCs to say. But in order to actually make these branching actions and and these commands and knock-on effects and the decision trees within them, such as obviously in RPG Maker, it does take a lot of time, effort, and particular care and attention, and you can definitely tell that in this particular one. And just as a bit of an aside, I obviously got sent this ROM for free to have a look at. The good thing about it is I don't have any embargoes in terms of reviews, what I can or cannot say, or what I can or cannot do. There's no money exchanging hands for me to do it. It's just, here it is. There's not even any expectation of a review, and that's always the way that I have liked to do it. Like to have done it. Previously in the past, I might have been strongly, given a nudge to say, could you do a video or could you do a review? But, nowadays I get sent quite a lot. Not as many as I used to, but I get sent a lot. And over the last 2 years, I think I've only said yes to wanting to have a look at them in that time. And I think the first one I never actually got round or had time in doing it. I don't think I actually installed it, so I didn't even get a chance to play it. But the fact of the matter is, this one came up and I felt compelled and inclined to take a look at it. So, I just sort of wanted to qualify that before I go on and give you the sort of like final score. And, scores are pretty much meaningless depending on, who they're from, where that falls within their stack, and, what that means in terms of how good the game is. It's all obviously opinion based. But for me, this is a really great game. It's an 8 out of 10. It falls in the same such games as we had in the Game of the Year, as Hades, as Cyberpunk, and was there another one that was 8 out of 10, I think? Was it just those two? No, it was those two. So, this would have come 5th in the Game of the Year 2020 had I looked at it and it had been released last year. And that's really incredible for me to think about, that this game has a very realistic chance of being one of the best games of the year. And all credit to it, to be perfectly honest. I don't think it's a real controversial opinion. I will probably play a grand total of 8 to 10 more games that have released this year. And yeah, this is clearly a labour of love, and it's one of those things that you don't always find. And when you do, it's very much normally Marmite. People either really love it for what it is, or they're just disinterested. So I hope that Spacebot release it as a ROM. I think that'd be really good. Get it out there to more people, because I'm sure that there would be, a semi-decent uptake for this digitally. I think, the higher entry price of the physical versions, as good as they look, other than pure collectors that want it to display it and to have it as a physical product, other than that, I don't see you really being able to sell this, obviously, for £40. If they put it back up the same as they have on the Dragonborn game, and they list it for about £12.99, I think, that's got that one up for, then, there will be people who will want to buy it and want to play it. So that's just something for them to think about. Like I say, I'm fairly certain they will. It seems in line with what they've done previously. And at some point, would like to have a look at that Dragonborn game, potentially, if we ever get around to doing so. And obviously, maybe have a look at it on the channel. So there you have it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this review. It's went on a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but of course you can always check out the written review if you want to, and you can also check out my initial gameplay as well. That's on the channel, as well as the gameplay that you've been watching here as well. So yeah, feel free to check it out, have a look, let me know what you guys think. Am I just the only one that thinks that this is a cool project, or I don't know, but there you go. I'll see you all on the next one, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.